Hi, this is me, Newton and Malini. We are here again to talk to you about things that we just love to talk about. And one of the things we like to talk about is healthier variations of our favorite food. But the question is, what makes a food a favorite food? And today we are going to explore that. So, Malini, what is your favorite food?
I would classify it in if I were to say, okay, today I want to cook something that is near to my heart, okay, it would really be a food that comes from a childhood memory. The person who cooked in my home growing up was my grandmother. And so there are a number of foods that even now when I make them evoke this multi-sensory experience. It is the taste of it, the smell of it, almost the feeling of emotional warmth because I was very, very close to my grandmother. And to give you an example, South Indian fish curry, there are so many versions, okay? And I've actually taken her version, kind of made it my own, and kind of added a little healthy twist to it. So it's a very simple recipe, but it has all the typical South Indian flavors: curry leaves, dried chili, tamarind, coconut milk. Now, the kinds of fishes we used were probably fish in Malaysia, but I use salmon. Originally, I used to use some whitefish, but then I thought, okay, we want to eat more salmon, and honestly, salmon can get pretty boring. You can fry it, you can grill it, you can put a sauce. But using the salmon in my grandmother's fish curry sauce was a way I kind of upgraded the nutritional value, but still kept everything the essence. And I can tell you, when I even say, okay, I'm going to make, and it's a very simple recipe, it's very, very quick to make. It already, even when I'm assembling the ingredients, I'm already getting this thought of my grandmother making it. And one of the sweet things that we would do is the day after, the first day you'd have the fish, and there may be some okra or some little brinjal or something. The next morning, and I can actually physically imagine this, where she would sit at the breakfast table, I would be sitting next to her. We would just have the sauce left over, and she would make some dosa, and she would heat the sauce so it becomes even thicker, and dipping that dosa into that sort of reduced fish curry. Oh my God, I have to tell you, that is probably one of my happiest food memories. So when you ask me, it's hard to say what's your favorite food because there are other things that people make, things that Pankshi makes. There are favorite foods, but if you ask me for one food that has the most emotionally comforting memory, that is hands down.
See, for me, it's not one person or one food. I do have many food memories in that sense. I come from a family who loved food. Food was one of the central part, and people expressed their love in form of food. I cook emotionally. So I don't follow recipe. I don't follow any structure. My food is what my memories are of that food. And there are certain things, though, I do agree, that will take me back to the place where I felt most safe, most secure. And so for me, one of that dish is in Gujarati people, they call it dal dhokli. In Marathi, we call it dar dhokla. But it's a simple dumpling in a lentil soup. So, a typical Indian dal that is made, So you just make that dal, and you make these wheat dumpling, and different people make different types of it. For sometimes people roll it and make it thin ravioli type of things and add to it, and sometimes people will just make it like gnocchis. But that dal dhokli is eaten and with lots and lots of ghee. So lentils, wheat, ghee, and some minimal spices is how my mother made it. And I think I like my mother's version. That brings me the memory. But I also had a favorite aunt, and her version was a much more rustic version, where she would not pre-boil them. She wouldn't add too many spices. She would just make these dumpling, which actually larger versions of gnocchi, and put them and let the dal boil in it. And that is one of it which brings me the most comfort. I don't often make it, and nowadays because of low carb stuff, you don't eat some of these things. Also, my husband, at least in the beginning, didn't like that at all, and I cooked for him mostly, so I never make those. Maybe one of these days when you come, I'll just make them.
Pankaj makes an amazing dal
But
dokli.
that's not going to
Is
be
it
my dal
different? Yeah,
dokli, because
yeah.
Gujarati dal
It's
doklis
different.
is very thin. It has there's dal is very spicy. Mine is a
Right.
much
I guess
more.
his mother also didn't make very spicy. So the interesting thing is, I was never eaten Gujarati food until basically I ate my mother-in-law's food, and her food was not very spicy, and I think in some way might have been a milder version. And I remember the first time I ate dal dokli, but whatever it is, I was like, oh my God, I loved it.
And but you know the interesting thing about these emotional foods, Malini, what qualifies good is in that person's mind,
Yeah.
and the love that person did. So
Yeah.
my mother-in-law, who was something she made very well, but she was never interested in cooking. So that made her a not so great cook. However, there was this dish that she used to make out of gourd. There's Loki,
Uh-huh.
and which Avinash, my husband, loved. And it's a funny story that when we got married, he said, I love this, so I made something. And my family makes multiple ways of making this, and I made this one of the most exotic way of Loki for him. He didn't like it. I made a different style. He didn't like it. And for him, it was not like his mother's.
Yeah, yeah.
And one day I got so frustrated, and I just added a lot of water to it and made it very soupy, and not, to me, it was not the greatest thing. He ate it and he says, that's the
it.
way I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And that, because for him, that signified his mother's love. So, coming back to food and memory, I think my thoughts are that there are some foods which evoke these emotional memories that are so unique to that person. So when you say favorite food emotionally, it is so unique to that person.
Yes. You know, it reminds me, I mean, I read a lot of Japanese literature, and there are two series. You know, one is actually called the Chibiniko Kitchen, and the other one is um, that it's a food detectives, and it's the same thing. People go to them and they tell them about a food that they ate in a certain place a long time, and these people actually recreate it. I mean, it's fiction, but it's the same thought. And one of them, and it reminded me, it's not so much the taste of the food, because the person who was cooking first made it and it tasted amazing, but the person said no, it was
It's
not
not the
this.
same.
And the food detective went and found that the original recipe supposedly the person was gluten free and the bread that was used was a different kind of bread. So actually, the final product may not have tasted, but that was the aha. This now tastes exactly like how I remember it. And same thing with sometimes we remember things, but maybe the food actually, if somebody else ate it, may not have tasted as good.
So I think I would have a different take. We always do about our 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
So my take on this is for all the cooks, all the spouses, all the wives and sisters and brothers who cook for other people. If you're cooking an emotional dish, don't expect the other person to like it just because you made it, because their memory may be different.
That's right.
You may create your own memory. Make dishes that are unique to you and you are making first time and create memories with it. Don't mess with their childhood memories.
I totally get that. And like you said, if somebody were to say, oh, this is your, I took the recipe and made your grandmother, I would not
No.
taste the same. And it is interesting because it's very hard for me to give the exact portions because I have to keep tasting it.
You have to
Today,
do it
the
with your memories.
tomatoes, the tomato may not taste as sour today, so I have to add more tamarind. The coconut milk tastes different from a different can, and I got to fiddle with it, make it a little bit more. But there will be a point when I keep tasting it and it'll get to that point. Now I have written these down, because I want to pass it on and people can get it too.
But it won't be same.
It won't be the same.
They won't have the same memory.
That's
They
right.
may have, your grandchildren will have a memory of your cooking,
Yeah.
but not your grandmother's cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's our podcast today, that create your own emotional memories. And if you have a favorite food with an emotional memory, you cook it yourself because
And-
you're the only
but
one
you can,
who can create.
pass it on because, there is a legacy involved, and if you can pass on a recipe like my husband cooks mother-in-law's food and I cook grandma's food, but the children also know that that is a food that's come from a history.
Yes.